Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost?
While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you. Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit sceducationlottery.com.
Hey folks, welcome, good evening to you all. Welcome to another Money Space with me, Kalu Aja. Of course, on this space, we're talking money, the economy, and of course, personal finance. So great to have you guys on here. This week, we're talking Fintech. Got a great guest, Tayo. Tayo runs Paga. He's right here. We're going to jump right into it. We're not going to have our normal long spaces. We're going to try to keep it short, because I got Ty on a very, very short time window. So Ty, want to go ahead and unmute and just introduce yourself?
Hey, Kalu, thanks for having me on, and thanks everyone for joining. Really good to be here, and looking forward to the discussion. So just maybe by way of background, I'm the founder and CEO of Paga Group, where UK headquartered, but very much focused on how do we deliver, financial access and financial services to Africans, and going after strategy to be the financial infrastructure that powers the growing middle class of Africa and gives them seamless access to global commerce. So we're really excited about that. Starting in Nigeria. I'll be very happy to dive deeper into what we do and how we do it, and take your questions.
Gotcha. Thanks for that intro, Ty. Let's just go right into it, right? Was Paga always the plan, or did you see an opportunity? How did Paga start? What was it? Was it you saw an opportunity, or this was the plan?
Yeah, no, it wasn't the plan. I had moved to the US at the age of 16 by myself to go to college, and I actually had a strong desire to come back to Nigeria at the time, but I ended up deciding after college, but decided to stay. This was in 1994. After Babangida had done all the elections and all of that. And anyways, I decided to stay in the U.S. and much longer, and eventually did my business school at Stanford Business School. And then while I was in business school in 2004, I thought again strongly about coming back to Nigeria. And people told me at the time that it still was about who you knew, not what you knew. So I should stay longer in the U.S., build my career, etc. So I ended up doing that. Went to work for Cisco in acquisitions and venture. Had a great career in Silicon Valley, loved it. But that really actually was the first place that opened my eyes to entrepreneurship in a big way, and to the power of entrepreneurship to impact economies and countries and change societies. And 3 years in, I decided to move back to Nigeria, join a private equity firm called Trevant Capital, and in that process, my view was to do private equity in Nigeria for about 5 years, rebuild my network, get to understand the problem sets, what's going on in the market, and then do something entrepreneurial. But 3 months in, I decided I was going to leave that job and do something entrepreneurial. So I spent about another 3 months or so actively looking at different ideas and different possibilities before really honing in on what is now Paga. And what drove me then is still what excites me about what we do, right? It's that I was banked with 2 banks, but yet I was still having to do transactions in cash, right? And I was like, look, there's no way a country can achieve the potential that it needs to achieve if you can't solve payments. And so what actually motivates me personally and drives me is that I want to see the day where access to finance for your business or for your life as an individual, or making payments is an afterthought in Africa. It's already an afterthought in the US and most of the world. And when I say afterthought, what do I mean? If I want to buy a car in America today, I would literally not do anything before I walk into, other than look for the car I want, maybe do some research on the car I want, but I can walk into the car dealership, right? Find the car I want, test drive, and then sit down there and fill out some forms, and in less than an hour, walk out with a car, right? That is an afterthought. Like the financing of the car is not what's in the top of your mind, right? And the same is true of almost anything you want to buy. It shocks people, my friends in the US, when I tell them even my iPhone I had to buy in cash, right? Like, it's like, why would you do that? Like, it's not what you do. So I think that's what really, really drives me, and is at the core of everything we do. And so for me, and where we're going as a business, it's about, it's not what was originally on the path, but it's been an exciting journey. It's been one with lots of ups and downs. Great team of people who have believed in this vision, who believe in this vision, who are really working with their heart and soul towards getting to the great, the holy land that we see ahead of us. And we're really, really excited about that.
Fantastic. Just to hone in on fintech and that IT sector in Nigeria. So Nigeria's GDP sector, the number one contributor is, of course, agriculture. The second is going to be trade. The third is ICT. Yeah. But the key thing is that both agriculture and trade, and we're looking at the last quarter GDP release, that was, I think, this is quarter 3, 2024. Both trade and agriculture are very, very anemic growth. I mean, both of them are less than 2% growth. IT is doing about 5%. So it's IT that promised land in Nigeria. Are we still in the growth sector in terms of IT, fintech? Do you see more runway, blue ocean? Are we really maturing? Where do you think we are?
I don't think we're matured yet at all. I think there's still a long way to go. But there's a lot of challenges. Nigeria is a very blessed country in terms of natural resources, arable land, to talk about agriculture, and also in terms of the intelligence of its population. And I think actually that is our biggest asset, is that our people, and not only the intelligence, but also the enterprising spirit of Nigerians across all socioeconomic levels. And I think, that's where I see the opportunities still ahead, especially in the ICT space, broadly speaking, because it's about knowledge work, right? And even though the world is moving fast into AI, into robotics, there are opportunities. This actually means that it's easier for people to, even if you don't have a great primary school education, because our public schools are not very good, or you don't have a great university education because our public schools are not very good, you can still self-learn. You can still get self-taught, and participate in this global economy of AI and robotics. And I think that is super exciting. And I think the opportunity ahead is going to be that Africans, broadly speaking, are solving and helping Africa leapfrog and get to the future in spite of government, right? And so I fully am bullish about that. I'm bullish about education being a critical answer and a critical piece to the future, whether that is formal line of education or self-taught opportunities. And that's why personally, outside of what I do at Paga, I'm really excited about the fact that I'm spending time with the African Leadership Academy as a board member. Really, because that institution is focused on how do we develop the next generation of ethical, moral leaders for Africa, right? It's not, there's ICT within what we do there, but I think it's first even just about leadership in general than specific industries. But we're really specific on ICT. I've been impressed, and I can see my journey at Paga as well. I remember at the very beginning of Paga, it was very difficult for us to find engineers in Nigeria who were not only good technically, but actually had worked in a place where or understood the principles of building, large scale enterprise software that is similar that needs to be architected before you start coding. And you fast forward 16 years, so actually in the beginning we actually didn't have any engineers in Nigeria, right? And you fast forward 16 years and we have more than half our engineers in Nigeria, right? And so that to me alone is a great signal, and tells you, and to the point where now that our recruiting is 100% looking at Nigeria, right? And it tells you that the landscape has really developed in a way that is very positive, but there's still more to do, and there's still more room ahead of us. And I think the internet, the ability to access information, the ability to leverage AI tools, is only going to help us leapfrog even further.
Gotcha. Just a quick one on that. Has Japa affected that IT talent pool? Have you seen any effects, positive, negative, with Japa?
Yeah, it's gone in waves, right? We had the wave a few years ago where there was a lot of people leaving. I wonder who left. We had actually a wave where some people came back because they realized that, man, it's so hard, right? Abroad, if you don't have the right way to land, quote unquote. And then now I think what we see is you actually see a lot of people do remote work, where they're in Nigeria but working abroad and earning dollars. Even that has reduced some because the global companies now are saying to themselves, and companies in Silicon Valley, etc., are saying to themselves, well, look, we want people to come back into the office, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a real thing. And I think everybody can agree. I hope by now everybody agrees that, a team of people working together in person are by far more efficient than remotely. It's just, on average, I would bet on that team over a remote team.
Gotcha.
I think there's just so much there. So anyway, I think that is driving less remote work actually. And but it's something that's, even for me, just even this week I was thinking about, someone I was talking to lives in Ibadan and is looking for a job, and I'm like, man, I actually think it would be really solid from my interactions with him, but he's in Ibadan, right? Like, how do you be in Lagos? On the flip side, I have a colleague in Abuja, and he's like, oh man, there's talent here, right? And so I'm like, okay, we have an office in Abuja, so maybe we can hire engineering talent in Abuja, but I'll still want you all to go into the office in Abuja, right? And be with each other. So Japa has affected us, has affected things, but I think it's normalized a little bit. And I'm getting, this year I haven't yet experienced anyone on our team staying and leaving, So I think that's it's quieted down a bit more.
Gotcha. And just a question about this capital raise. I always see Nigerians raising a lot of capital. Fintechs, we have unicorns and all here. Millions. We're either number one or number two. That's Nigeria in terms of capital raise. Just want to ask you a question. That money, the dollars that is raised, does it flow to Nigeria, or it sits in Silicon Valley Bank? What happens to it?
Yeah. Typically, a lot of startups in Nigeria are headquartered outside of Nigeria. And that's true of Paga. Paga is headquartered in the United Kingdom. But typically a lot of startups are actually headquartered in Delaware, in the US. And so what would happen is that the fundraise would go into a foreign account outside of Nigeria typically, but the money does flow into Nigeria because you're trying to execute a business here locally, so you end up funding your local company, right? So if I take us as an example, we end up flowing money into Nigeria to fund, when we need to. Now we're fortunate that we've built a profitable business here in Nigeria, so we have less need to to flow money in. But when we need to, we would flow money into Nigeria for that purpose, right? I think ultimately the benefit, if not all the dollars, one for one, definitely comes into the country.
Gotcha. Let's just sort of pivot back into the economy. You just casually said how you just started Paga after 3 months in Nigeria. I don't know what the conditions were back then and the year you did this, but if you had to do Paga again in 2025, so that same idea, you were in Nigeria 3 months, would it be easier or harder in your estimation?
Knowing what I know, or still with the veil of ignorance?
Just with looking at the economy, like not knowing what you know, like you were a guy here 3 months and then you had to start. Is it the policies, the culture, the financing? Is it better today than it was 3 months ago back then? Yeah, just.
Yeah. No, look, I think it's better today in a few ways, a number of critical ways. But I think my advice would still be probably. I mean, then I'll come to what my advice would be to someone who's thinking about that. Like, I think, it's better in the sense that today you now have seed investors, right? When I started Paga, people did not know what angel investing was. I had to teach a lot of people who ended up investing what angel investing meant. But today you now have a lot of angel investors. You have, angels who've made money out of exiting from selling their shares in other companies. And people have heard about the opportunity to scale $10,000 into $1 million, into $2 million, so like, oh wow, yeah, so there's an opportunity here at the very beginning, and then you have professional seed funds as well. So I think getting a good idea with a good team, with a clear market opportunity off the ground is a lot easier now than when I started Paga 16 years ago. Okay. Now that's more on the commercial side. And I think on the government regulatory side, frankly, I don't think much has changed to affect or to say that significantly any different. I think if anything, I think the regulators and the government are more aware of startups, which I would argue actually would bring them to your door more than not, right? So I think more quickly you'll have the tax guys coming to you, or or experiences like I got recently where, the folks at LIRS asking me, like, we see your lifestyle on Twitter and wondering how this salary is able to afford it. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
They do that? That's the thing?
Oh, this is recent. And I know we're in a public space, which is fine, because I actually am quite upset about it. But it's very recent. So I'm like, and this conversation was soon after I just come back from a trip with my family to London, and then I went to my 20th reunion at Stanford, and I remember posting about all this stuff online. And so I'm like, wait a second. So you're looking at it and you're saying, this guy went to London, he went to Stanford Bridge, and then he went to California, and then how come, this is his salary,
Wow.
And I'm like, that is just, and so 16 years ago, that would not have been an issue, right? Because nobody knows startups, nobody's looking at, Paga, nobody's contributing. But now people know startups, people are paying attention, people are reading stuff online. So I actually think, interestingly, I think it actually would attract a bit more attention. But beyond that, I don't see any real policy position of the Nigerian government that is, beneficial or hurtful, more so than when I started. It's an amazing comparison.
Very interesting to see that, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a guy here that was talking about Startup Nation and all that. All that, the nothing.
I have no clue what the execution of that bill is, right?
Very interesting.
Yeah, so it makes no difference to us.
Gotcha.
And my friend is the one behind driving it, but from a practical execution day to day, I don't know what it does.
Interesting. Let me ask you about what's the one key indices in Nigeria, macroeconomic indices in Nigeria you watch, and that's your I wake up, I look at it. If it's good, I'm happy. If it's bad, I'm sad. Is there one or two that should focus on like a hawk? Yeah.
There's only one. It's the exchange rate.
Interesting. Yeah.
That is it, because we are, and it actually is. If there's something that the government should actually try to change for startups, it's going to be around this particular topic. So the reason why the exchange rate is most important is because we're raising money from outside of Nigeria. Okay, and if you're raising money outside of Nigeria, then everybody looks at your numbers in dollars, not in naira. Okay. So the naira devalued 4x last year. Your revenues just went down 4x. It doesn't matter how great you grew in naira, right? Their view is like you didn't grow. You're actually negative, right? And then that has impact on your ability to raise money. It has impact on valuation of your business. And it has an impact on ability to exit and provide liquidity to your investors who came in, etc. So it has a lot of impact on the business. And so, and if you look at large countries similar to Nigeria, on their journeys, they got to a place where the government created the policies that encouraged local investment in companies in their country. And so, the Chinese companies or startups did not need, quote unquote, or do not need today actually, to go to the US to raise capital. Not to say that they don't raise from US folks, but they don't need to, because there's local capital in China. That is true of Indonesia, that is true of India, that is true of most of Southeast Asia. It's becoming more and more true in Latin America, right? And so we need to get to a place where the high net worth individuals, the pension funds in Nigeria are investing in Nigeria, and where a startup is then truly motivated to set up a Nigeria company, not incorporating outside of Nigeria. And if your earnings are in naira, you should be raising naira. You could argue for Paga Nigeria. Paga Nigeria is a naira business. Paga Nigeria should not be raising dollars. It should be raising naira, right? To fund its operations, and in which case then the FX is question is sort of muted. And the returns for the investor, everything is clear, right? And so we need to actually, from a policy perspective, start thinking about what sort of policies would drive that, would encourage, that future, because it will take a while to get there. But we need to start doing that.
Excellent. All right, guys, if you're listening, we're talking with Ty of Paga, and we're just about the 23-minute mark. If you have just questions, you want to speak, do requests. I have about 2 more questions. I'm going to let you guys ask Ty directly. So just request, and I'll add you on there. Thanks for being patient with me. Ty, I have a question. So, do you think IT? I know we talked about the Jagba issue. We talked about agriculture and trade being the largest contributors, but not employing a lot of people or having anemic growth. Do you think we can use IT to engage our youth and get us out of this unemployment, should we say, molasses that we find ourselves? Do you think IT is a silver bullet?
I think it can be one of options. I don't think in of itself it's the only thing, right? But we are blessed as a country, as a continent, of this human capital. We are also blessed that we're in a great time zone, actually, in the world, right? In terms of our time zone and how we are awake a good portion of the time Asia is awake, and a good portion of the time the West is awake, right? So, that is actually very, and that is just so strategic that we should be able to leverage it, right? And I think, and this sort of goes to, I guess, what I was thinking earlier about if I was to buy someone, I would say that if I were to do it all over again, that I would see how could I have my talent capabilities coming from Nigeria of my actual market being elsewhere. Until a time, right, where bringing the market to Nigeria is then, more scalable, right, and more, and I built such a business elsewhere that it doesn't affect that the currency, all that kind of stuff are not as impactful, right, to the overall business. But because we have that human capital, we can leverage it. Talking to Sanusi, who I'm sure you know on Twitter, he talks about how there's just such depth of talent in Kaduna where he's based, that those of us in Lagos are missing something, and it's made me think, man, maybe I need to go put a base in Kaduna, right? Because there's technology talent, that is not moving from Kaduna. It's based there. They're not going to move to Lagos anytime soon. So maybe we don't need to move to Lagos. Same thing's true in Enugu. I know we actually checked that. We actually went through the process to think about opening an office in Enugu for that reason. So I do think it can be strategically done. And this could be a sector where we actually spend the time and energy to train more people, to give them access. And that's why I'm also excited about what the ALX is doing. I don't know if you've heard of ALX, but ALX is an organization that Fred Swanica and the African Leadership Group started. And just last year, they trained over, I think, 200,000 people from Nigeria, right, on different technology skills, right? And that is giving those people, a leg up. We've hired some people from ALX, right? And it's giving them a leg up. It's allowing them to get in front of employers. It's allowing some of them have started their own businesses. And I think it can be strategically positioned and used as a way to get us, because the future is about the knowledge economy, right? The way I think about AI is the way, if you remember when Microsoft Excel came out, right? And I'm aging myself here, but when Microsoft Excel came out, it became, it didn't take away the job of the analyst, but it was like, you better know how to use Excel, right? And I think AI will take some jobs away, but I think at the crux of it is that we better know how to use it, right? And so I think that we can leapfrog a lot of things by focusing on educating people in tech skills, right? And scaling that and letting us be the source of talent to the world.
Makes sense. I agree. Let's get Stephen in here we have Stephen and Bikas. So Stephen, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Tayo's been with us for give or take about 30 minutes. What's your question, Stephen?
Okay, good evening. Just a quick one. I see that a lot of people are trying to do payments in Nigeria. If someone is going to the payment sector today, what would your advice be? Would it be for the person not to even bother at all? Or would you encourage such initiative, given that you have a couple of other players already? My second question will be, I know FX is a challenge for fintech generally in Nigeria. I know that talent is another challenge. Aside these two, what other challenge do you think the fintech guys, face? Aside these two other major ones, those would be my two questions.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen, thank you. Look, I think I would never say to someone, don't go into X space, right? Or say payments as an example, because look, if you look at the U.S., at some point someone said to the guys who started Stripe, "Oh, PayPal's already there." But Stripe showed up, right? And then even with Stripe, there have been a couple other companies that have come to compete with Stripe and are doing so well, right? But what I would ask the person is, what are you uniquely solving that is not there already, and what's your unique proposition? Because maybe there is something that is not there, and there's an angle that you have, right? Whatever that angle is, right? And we've seen it. I'll use MoneyPoint as the example where MoneyPoint came in and said, "Hey, my angle is I'm going to figure out how to get $100 device in the hand of people for 20,000 naira." Right, and I'm going to do it in a way that nobody else can figure it out, right? So they can tell you everything about transactional processing and all this stuff. That's really it, right? But again, we're competitors, so that's my perspective. Ultimately, I think that's what they figured out. That was their unique proposition, and they did it, and they did it well. And so now you see that blue device everywhere. However they did it, that's the unique proposition that got them going. So. So you have to ask yourself that question, right? Otherwise, why repeat what people are doing? I actually think this is one of the challenges in the market is that there's a lot of waste of human capital and resources where people are trying to be a Me Too service. There's no need for Me Too services. There's so much to solve that you could go find other things to do, right? If you don't have a very unique answer to the angle. And then in terms of challenges, every company is different. So it's hard for me to generalize like what people's challenges are. But you mentioned two of the biggest, which is, capital and, whether that's money or human capital. And then I think otherwise everybody just has very unique things, and they're regulated and they're not regulated. They're dealing with, I think there's actually one general challenge in Nigeria, which is that, it's not super clear all the laws that you have to abide by or that you have to comply with, whether it's things like, paying into a housing fund once you have more than 10 people, right? Whether it's, the ITF, right? All these different things that when you start a company in Nigeria, it's not clear to you that you have to do. And by the time it becomes clear, it's probably a point where you're like losing out on something because you didn't do it. So I actually think there could be a lot more clarity to businesses. So when you set up a business, like here are the exact things you need to do overall. Your business is in Ibadan. Okay, this is what you have to do at a country level. This is what you have to do, at the state level. This is what you have to do at the city level, right? We could get a lot more clarity on those kinds of things.
All right, that works for me.
Yeah, I agree with you totally on that. Yeah, as an accountant myself who does filings and all of that, I totally agree on that. Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Steven. Let's get Jade. Jade of Wall Street. Thanks, Steven. Jade, you've got the floor. Jade, let's get the Emo Prince. While Jade is getting ready, Emo Prince, go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. My first question is, I've noticed that a lot of fintechs, startups in Nigeria focus on remittances back into the country. That would, of course, be because several of our friends, family, relatives are already out there and they need to send money back. But this is a question or a part of the question I want to ask. Do you think that the ability to send money out of Nigeria would help the trade and the agricultural sector? That's the question. And then the second one is the bar to go into fintech creations or startup has actually been lifted from the new CBN policy, because to get a PSSP is about 250 million naira and an IMT is around 2 billion. So would you say that lifting this bar has actually created a bottleneck for people wanting to start up, or it actually is good because it selects the best out of the crowd? So those two questions. Thank you.
Yeah, look, I'll start with the second one. I mean, I don't know whether a higher capitalization, I don't know that a higher capitalization selects the best, right? I mean, what it does is it just makes it more expensive, and it makes, I think the approach the central bank is taking is a good one, actually. I support it because it does take, look, it is very expensive to run these kind of businesses, right? Expensive not just from a capital perspective, but also compliance and doing things the right way, etc. Right? And the last thing we want is, because when things are done wrong, it affects everybody, Yeah. I mean, one of our competitors is an example. This was very public last year, right? You know, people were finding thousands of accounts, apparently maybe even millions of accounts that they did not register were created so they can beef up their numbers, right? And I think this was in the public domain with OPay. And I actually know personally two people who found out that they had accounts that they did not create. Right now, I understand they've cleaned stuff up and they were fined heavily, but but we don't want people doing that, right? So I think part of how you stop those kinds of things is by creating these barriers to make sure that only serious players go in. But even when you have serious players, you still have to make sure that people are compliant with the regulation. Right. So I think that's sort of there. And then look, I think to your point, and I think this is what I don't know if you heard when I said this earlier, that for me personally, like what drives me is the day that payments and access to finance and financial services are an afterthought for anyone. And as a company, we're really focused on how do we be the global financial ecosystem and infrastructure for the growing middle class of Africa that also gives them seamless access to global commerce, right? So that seamless access to global commerce is, and everything that, how do we enable, the trader to easily buy the goods from Dubai, right? To easily buy the goods from, Indonesia, right? To receive that payment from, from the person that they're selling to export. And we need to become more of an export country, right? My wife's business now is exporting to the US, right? How does she get that money into and flow that money back into Nigeria, right? And so I think we need policies that enable these things as well. So I actually do agree with your point, or what I think you're trying to say. But yeah, I agree with you that it needs to be easier and easier for people to be able to move money in and out of Nigeria. I think that would be a good thing for the country.
Fantastic.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Carlos. Please, can I just ask one follow-up question? Last question.
Real quick.
All right. So, Mr. Carlos, what would you then say would be a method to get this working? Because, yes, we've seen this I know several friends from the East, right? I know several merchants that are looking for, they can't get volumes in a day. Maybe you need to buy in chunks and different pieces here and there. What would you say would be a solution to such things? Because, once we get a solution, then we can begin to move into the global scale. What would you say?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You're putting me on the spot. It's a tough one for me to answer. I think first is just even, from a policy perspective, making it a bit easier, right? And I do think there is a lot of, there's definitely a lot of demand of money coming into Nigeria, and we're seeing, there's a lot of trade. So I think the easier we make it, the more we'll see both sides balance out, and ultimately dollars coming into Nigeria in a big way, which I think the central bank would like.
All right, that works for me. Let's get if Jade is ready. Jade of Wall Street, if you're ready to speak at all, just ready to speak now, sir. Let's get BCAS. BCAS, you've got the floor. BCAS, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Carlo. Thank you for the opportunity. Hi, Tayo. Great to hear you speak again. It's always a pleasure listening to you. So, 2 days ago, KB Posters POS had a statement of which Paga reposted. You guys are launching a product. You had this partnership called Doroki. I just wanted to speak about it. What was actually Doroki, and what do you think was the problem Doroki wants to solve in Africa? Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, this week we very exciting for us. We've been working on this for a while, and this has been, Doroki is a company that we own, and is very much focused on digitizing SMEs and businesses, giving them a cloud SaaS solution that helps them manage their entire operations. So what do I mean? If you are a supermarket, Doroki is the software you will use to manage your entire inventory to manage your vendor purchases and your vendor relationships. It is the software you will use to manage the sales that is happening across all your stores. So as a customer, when you get to the till at a supermarket, it is the software that the cashier is using, right? To scan you bought one bottle of 7-Up, you bought, two bags of gari, 2 bags of rice, whatever, right? To scan all of those things and real time deduct it from the inventory, etc., and give the supermarket a robust set of reports at the end of the day. It's integrated into digital payments, so reconciliation is very straightforward, right? And it works offline, which is amazing because of our environment. Data might not be working at that moment; it will sync back later. So we're really excited about Doroki. We've had it in the out for the last 3 weeks or so, but we just made the announcement. And then we're going to do a bigger launch event later. But yeah, so it solves this for for 4 different segments of businesses today: supermarkets, restaurants, spas and salons, and general retail, right? And for each one, we have built depth in each of these categories, right? And so because what a restaurant needs is different than what a supermarket needs. And it's different and even the inventory management is different. At a restaurant, my inventory management is how much pepper did you use? How much rice did you use for that place, right? And so it's about recipe management. And so it's a very different kind of inventory than just a general inventory at a supermarket, right? Now, all of them also have customer relationship, right, which we've built in. So Doroki is really cool. Please go to doroki.com. You can learn more there. If you know anyone that needs to digitize and really start going into the future of retail, please connect. Send that to them. Connect to them there. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Let's get Raphael Doroki. So, is that quick question? Is that online?
Yeah.
How do we get that? Just want to do my research.
Yeah. So we have a website, doroki.com.
Doroki.com.
It's an Android app. And then for the administrators, there's a web portal, right? So as a business owner, the web portal is probably where I'm going to get all my dashboards, all my reports, very detailed reporting, and capabilities on the web.
Gotcha. All right,
but the actual software you use is Android, and so we've also built the capability to put that software on a Windows terminal, because we know in our market a lot of stores have a Windows terminal, and so we've been able to how we do that and to give them an Android solution on Windows.
Excellent. Love that. Raphael, I've got the floor, sir. Raphael B.
Appreciate you guys. I just want to ask a question. Is it Paga? What kind of language is that? Paga.
The word Paga?
Yeah.
Yeah, the word Paga is a Spanish word, actually. Paga is to pay. It means to pay in Spanish.
Okay. I am actually familiar with the language. I just want to make sure that I was right to that. I speak Portuguese, and we do also use the same word, Paga. So my question is, do you currently offer any partnership with any other countries? People who want to partnering with you to kind of do the same job you do?
To take our business into other countries?
Right. But in form of a partnering with people who have infrastructure and, well suited to your business.
Yeah, I mean, we do. I mean, and it's something that we're looking at. It really it's a case by case basis, as you can imagine, right? But as a general principle, we're actually very big on partnerships and in thinking about relationships and how we can go into other markets with others. So yeah, it's something that we'll be open to exploring. If you have an idea, you can feel free to catch me on here on Twitter.
100%.
We can talk about it offline. Mm-hmm.
I'll reach out to you with a partnership proposal. So, however, I do have additional request. There's an idea that
Raphael, you want to send him a DM?
Say what? Oh, yeah, 100%. I can.
That would work.
So, yeah. So, there is when I was visiting a Paga website, it seems to be a digital bank and sending and receiving money. But that's the option that I saw there. But when you see the African culture, they have something where they gather the money and they give to somebody else in every month. Their cycle. I don't know if you have ever seen. You see, most families they do not make enough money. So what they do every week, they put the money together and they one person, and another week they are scheduled to another person. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. I don't know how they call it. Maybe in your language, even in English, I don't know how they call it.
Yeah,
but
it's very common in many parts of the world.
Right. We have that a lot in my country where I'm originally from. And I've been thinking about if you can digitizing that and add that layer on the Paga, I think you will be having a very a product which is going to have a high demand due to most companies like PayPal and there's a lot of companies that are behind the same problem you're trying to solve. And those companies have been putting a lot of money in researches for 10 to 15 years. So they have a lot of data, they understand us about us, but they have not really understood that. So if you can add that one, I think that's my idea. I'm not trying to correct say what you should. So I think I kind of see the future because I understand how African would think.
Yeah, Rafa,
things like
just don't mind. I just got a very, very limited time. So what I'll do is this: if you can send him a DM or send me a DM, I'm sure he gets a tire. Just want to ask if you ask a question, just so we can follow. Just have a few guys want to speak.
The question has already answered. Maybe I'm gonna just mute myself, and I'm gonna get back to you guys in order to
really appreciate that.
See what we're gonna be required for the partnership. Thank you.
You're perfect. Really appreciate that, sir. Let's get Etienne. Etienne, I can't pronounce the first name. I apologize. Etienne 250. Etienne. Okay, let's get Oyeni Sheye. Oyeni, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Good evening, Mr. Tayo. I like what you've been doing for the African community, for the tech community. I think Paga is like one of the leading fintech that actually drove the wave in Nigeria. Yeah, I don't really have a question. I'm just trying to know what Mr. Tayo thinks about fintech platform non-attractive products like insurance for
there's a bit of static there.
Yeah, I took it off. Yeah, that was from King. I took him off. Yeah, go ahead. Sure, you go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, my question is, what does he think about fintech platform addressing solutions like insurance penetration in Nigeria, which is quite low?
Good question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and I think there's an opportunity there, and it's something that that we're actually quite interested in. I do think there are challenges with insurance in Nigeria specifically, because I think in any market, insurance is not necessarily something that people wake up and say, I want to buy insurance. Let's go, right? And even more in Nigeria, it's a real challenge for insurance companies. People primarily buy the insurances that they're required to buy, and but there's some innovative approaches that we're looking at actually with some partners. So watch this space. I'd be curious. If we had time, I'd have asked you, if you have all the insurance that you need, right, for your life, right? Do you have even a rent, have home insurance, things like that, right? Because I think the challenge is a lot of people don't have these things that actually could be very beneficial if something happens to that rate and to their livelihoods. So I think there's a big opportunity there.
Okay, thank you very much. Shopping.com is doing that too. Otherwise, if anybody want to check us out, shopping.com.
You have to plug yourself.
SUREFINC.com. We'll be happy to partner Paga too within payments. I'm based in UK, but I see what the migrant community in UK and in US and all over the country do in terms of remittance. And I think they could also do something consistently with traditional insurance, and we try to do it digitally.
All right.
So we'll be happy to buy your Paga too.
Actually, a good one, yeah.
Oh, send it.
Gotcha. Yeah, Tayo, got a quick one for you. Tayo, I mean, is there an IPO anywhere in the works for Paga? I mean, is something like that? Are you thinking about it? Is there a strategy paper somewhere?
Yeah, it's too early for us on that front. But look, I think there are really two paths for us as a business at some point. One is either a strategic sale, or an IPO. But I think right now we're really heads down. We feel like it's still day one. There's still so much to do. We're really excited about the business we've built. Today we have 3 lines of business. One is our indirect business, which is called Paga Engine, where we've opened up our entire infrastructure to allow other businesses to build on top of us. We have over 210 companies who are doing that. You can check that out on pagaengine.com. The second is Paga, the consumer app, which you can download on Android or iOS. And that's similar to PayPal or Venmo. And I think, as I was saying with someone today, I'm willing to say, put it next to any financial app in this country, and it's shoulder to shoulder better than most, if not all, in terms of its capabilities, the ease of use, how it works. And so the goal for that is to be your financial hub and make it easy for people to save, spend, and shop. And then the third is Doroki, which we talked about earlier, right? And really there it's about helping digitize businesses and merchants. And there's a very nice ecosystem play across all 3. But ultimately, like with all these 3 businesses, like the goal for us is, is to reach 1 billion people across the continent, and then at some point we'll look at whether we IPO or take a strategic approach with a larger company and be part of a bigger franchise.
Gotcha. Well said. I think I've got BCAS and CJ. I'm trying to wind it down for the evening. So at BCAS, I've been CJ. BKS, nothing there. CJ, you got the floor.
Yeah. Okay.
I think BCAS went earlier, by the way.
Oh, gotcha. Sorry about that. So CJ, you've got the floor.
Okay, so confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to ask two questions. One is, as someone who studied in the US, right? I mean, why didn't you think of at some point building the fintech in the US? Why did you come back to Africa with the whole Japa syndrome and all that? Then secondly, is there any, what's the role of AI in fintech in today's world? Yeah, thank you.
Interesting question. Why did they come back, Tayo?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you say why didn't I build a fintech in the US, the word fintech didn't exist when I moved to Nigeria. When I came back to Nigeria, it didn't exist when I started Paga, right? So you've got to ask the question in context. I think, look, ultimately, I came back because I want to be part of the redevelopment of Nigeria. I grew up seeing Nigeria as a giant of Africa. I don't think we are today. I think we have the potential to be. And I think there's still a long way to go to get there. And I think the work we're doing is just one piece of the puzzle, and it's not any one company that can do it alone. It's going to take all of us doing our part in different ways, right? And so very excited about that, and I think that's what we're just on. So for us, our knitting is really around providing that platform, whether directly or indirectly, that empowers and that really powers the growing middle class of Africa. Where this continent is going to have the largest middle class by 2050, I think it is, right? And so I think while population is not everything, it's a big part of what needs to be figured. How do we get that population working? How do we get them fed? How do we get them to be, to leapfrog the world, right? I think is really, really critical. And then you mentioned AI, and that is just like so much ahead of us in terms of thinking about how do we leverage AI in all of these goals, right? How do we leverage AI in offering financial services and payments? It's one thing to think about using AI within your business for being efficient. Like my meetings, when I take meetings with people now, I am so efficient. I'm actually more able to pay attention to the conversation and not be distracted by taking notes because my AI is taking notes, right? And it's actually so good, right? In the notes it comes up with, my ability to go ask questions of the AI and query my notes, all my notes. It keeps track of my continuous meetings with different people. So I use a tool called granola.ai. It's amazing. But then, and we're using AI in coding, right? To speed up our coding. There's more work for us to do that, to roll out across our company, but we think we can see opportunities there and wins there. We're already using AI in terms of marketing and building up collateral. But really, the place where, honestly, we still have just more work to do is to figure out, from a customer-facing perspective, how we leverage AI, right? And how we leverage AI for customers. But it's something that I'm excited about. I'm looking forward to how we do that. Also, how we leverage technologies like blockchain. A few months ago, actually, no, 2 months ago, we joined, formally, a private blockchain here in Nigeria that speeds up the processing of card transactions by 3 times. And I'm excited to get that across all our Doroki merchants, right? Because that's a big deal from a customer winning perspective, right? And so, there's a lot going on, and I'm excited about the technologies and what the future holds in all of these areas.
Well, yeah, AI is a real thing, right? Because I know when tech comes sometimes, and I hear tech, internet option 3. I don't know what it means on the real life, but AI is one thing that I've heard, and I see it day to day. Literally, what I do, work, my hobbies, I see it real life. Yeah. So it's amazing how the world's going to change.
It is.
Yeah,
it is, right? And it's like, and you think about robotics as well, right? Carlo, I was just tell a quick story. I recently went in the Waymo, the driverless car, right? And I took 3 trips. The first was 16 minutes. The other was 40 minutes, and then the other was, maybe it was a shorter trip. It was like 20 minutes. But that thing, when you're in the car, it has a screen at the back, and you're looking at that screen. It's an animated video of your trip. You can see the car you're in moving, and you can see everything that the car sees. You can see the people crossing the road, the other cars, all around it, quite far, front and back. And this thing, just, somebody stopped randomly in front of us, and they didn't jerk anything. Slowly slowed down, changed lanes, and kept going. First of all, of course, it traffic gated. It was free, changed lanes, went. And all of this is just like real time happening, right? And that is like leveraging real time knowledge, AI, different capabilities, right, to make driverless cars happening, right? And I think that's just one use case where I'm like, my goodness, right? We are soon going to be in a world where you're only going to drive because you want to drive, right?
Yeah.
And not because you need to drive, and that's just one example of so many.
I think the Tesla taxis now are out in Austin today, and I did see a prototype. The robot taxis, the new Teslas don't have a steering wheel. They just have they don't have a steering wheel. So it's like humans are more dangerous on the wheel than machines. So
it is the Waymos. Yeah, I've seen that. The Waymos still have a steering wheel, but I'm sure they're going to take it off because it's only there to give you some level of comfort, right? Yeah. But just to bring it home on my business as an example, and this thought of when I talk about I want payments and financial services to be an afterthought. When my friend encouraged me to take the Waymo, I was like, why not? I'm here in San Francisco, right? Like, I should do it. I downloaded the app, and within 5 minutes, I was in the car. I paid for it. I was in the car. There was no issue. Do you know what I mean? Like, the payment was not something I had to think about, right? or worry about. It just works, And today I was out to get my haircut, and I met a friend of mine who was an ED at a bank in Nigeria. And when he got done, he was bringing out wads of cash, and he was giving tips in naira. And I was like, why? I'm like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, dude, you're the ED of a bank. Why are you paying in cash? I'm like, why don't you paga her? And then he was like, and he asked me, do you have a paga account? She's like, yes. And I'm like, of course she does. You should paga her. When you're ED of a bank and you're carrying wads of cash around, right? I mean, it's just like, it just tells you the problem right there.
Yeah. One thing that folks that come to Nigeria always comment to me is that the transfer culture where you pay for everything. And what they mean transfer is you get into a cab, the guy says, this is my number, you transfer. In Kenya or in UK, you tap. So why can't we have tap technology where you just tap the guy's little device and he's gone?
Yeah. So I think it's a good question. We are going to get there.
Okay.
The central bank has diligently been working on this for many years. It's taking longer than any of us would have wanted, but we're nearly there, and I think we'll be there soon. Many years ago, they mandated that all debit cards have the capability for tap. So now there's not a single card you get in the market that doesn't have the capability. All cards have the capability. And then around the same time, people started changing out the point of sale card machines as well, right? So now most, if not all, card machines also have the capability, right? And the central bank has also come out with rules in the last year as to how tap and pay should work. So look, I would say for us at Paga, we will have it out sometime this year, actually. And I think that's going to happen across different providers. Everybody has to implement it into their systems. But I think we will have to pay very soon.
Gotcha. I think we have a last person here. That's PO. If you can speak, that's going to be our last question, and then I'll just come back to you, and then we'll just run out of space. PO, are you ready to speak?
Mm-hmm.
PO going once. Tayo, on a final note, I see you as a huge Chelsea fan, just in terms of the numbers, right? So, do you think the huge capex by Chelsea would pay off in terms of where do you see Chelsea? They're going to win Champions League, are they going to win the EPL, or they're going to be top 4?
Yeah.
If you had to do a business case, would you say that's sunk costs? Would you say that's misallocation of capital? Or would you say patient capital? Where are you on that?
I think it's a good allocation of capital, and it's patient capital. And I think they finally found a manager that actually fits into that plan.
You see, yeah.
So as much as Chelsea fans may have some frustrations with Enzo Maresca, I think you can see what he's trying to do. And I don't think he is as stubborn as people think he is. I question some of his decisions, but I have faith in his plan and what he's trying to do. I do think they need to make a couple more expenditures to really get this team firing on all cylinders. And that's very simple. They need actually three. They need to make three expenditures. One is we need to have a striker that is a world-class striker. I think Delap actually is good. I don't know that he's world-class, but I think he's good. But if you just have an Osimhen or someone like that, like it's amazing, right? Like, and then Delap comes on, or they play together, like, it just changes the picture. But Jackson's not the guy. And then the second is we need a keeper, right? Sanchez just doesn't get us there, right, at all. He's a great shot stopper, and actually, if you look at the statistics, he was the best in Premier League last season. And it shocks people when you say that, but actually, if you look at just the numbers, he was the best shot stopper in the Premier League last season, right? So he actually is a really good shot stopper, but the problem is he makes the same mistakes multiple times, right? And you can't have that risk if you want to win the title. And then the third is actually we need a backup to Mark Cucurella on the left wing, on the left back position. So But beyond that, I think we have a great team. We have a
Interesting.
really great team. And so I actually say next season, we're winning the league. It's not about Champions. We'll play the Champions League. I don't think we'll win the Champions League. But I think this team can win the league next season.
All right,
And
interesting.
I think that is just going to be like, grind. I think they've learned to grind wins out. They created more chances than I think everybody last season. They were third in defense. I think that's a massive improvement from where we're coming from, and I think it can be improved even more by just changing the goalkeeper. Right. So I think we'll find a more clinical team into next season, even if it was only Delap that is up front. I think we'll still find a more clinical team, right? And he would open up for Palmer. We'll find more aggression, right? So yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Interesting. Okay.
Who do you support?
No, I'll get in trouble if I say who I support on Twitter.
Why?
Right, because I use a certain team to do my financial, should we say, examples.
Okay.
So those guys were waiting for me. I mean, I do EPL. Let's say I support the Imba and Shooting Stars. That'll put me on the trouble. Gotcha. Yeah, but that last one, really the last question for you. There's a young guy listening to us today on the space. He's out of school. He's got no job. He didn't go to the US. He's got an uncle that can give him $1 million or $2 million. He knows some IT, so he's self-taught IT guy in Nigeria. He's your standard issue Nigerian guy that goes to Yaba, and all that. Yeah. What should that guy do in terms of IT? What sector do you think he should focus on? What should he do? Learn a skill? Yeah. What advice would you give that guy?
I would say go look up ALX.
ALX.
And apply to get into the ALX program. And I was recently at their offices here in Costain, in Lagos. They have a beautiful, beautiful space. They have several programs that they're training young people in. And I think it gets you not only a leg up in like your learning. A lot of it is self-paced, but it's also in person. But it also gives you a community of people that you get to build community with, right? And then gives you opportunities to employers as well. So I will say, Uncle, give me that money. Let me be able to take care of myself. Let me be able to pay for ALX. And that gives me a leg up into, from a career perspective as well. Yeah. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Perfect. I mean, if you could share ALX with me, I will also share on the Twitter feed. So in case folks want to basically know who they are, I would love to share that as well. Yeah. So if you could do that, I would be very grateful. Tayo, thanks. I mean, you've been a great guest today. Talk to us through the whole government of the economy, your Paga journey, also entrepreneurship, and even Chelsea. So we're very, very grateful. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, Carlos, thank you so much for everything you do. I'm a big fan following you online, and I appreciate that you take the time to help teach other people and share your knowledge and bring folks on. I think that's great. But no, I'm really grateful for everyone who joined. I think at some point we had up to 210 people on here. Hopefully it was useful. And, I'm available on Twitter. You can always reach me. I feel like I live on Twitter. So if anybody needs to reach me, please do. Please use Paga. Download our app. If you know someone that can use Doroki, use it. If you think your business can leverage Paga Engine, please go on there and contact us as well.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tayo. Thanks, everyone, for listening again. Interesting times out there in the economy with the strikes on Iran and all that. So it's going to be lots of fluctuations. What I will say is this: stay invested. I put a chart up. If you look at from 90, this is 1890, there are wars, there are famines, there are rumors of wars, there are invasions, there are toppling of governments, but the market, especially the US market, has always gone up over time. So time in the market is more important than trying to time the market. If you're going to retire in 10, 15 years, you should ignore the noise. Stay invested. If it's an opportunity, buy more. But try not to take quick actions. Oh, market's going to crash, or it's going to go up, then you sell or buy. Just, it's short-term noise. There will always be fluctuations, right? stay invested, stay true to your goal and your strategy. If you're short term, yep, you're worried. But if you're a long term guy, ignore the noise and stick to your plan, right? That's how I end it, guys. All right, Tayo, thanks so much, you guys. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you all next week again. I'm going to have an interesting guest again, maybe on commodities. You guys will also be here. You'll learn a lot as well. And I'll see you guys then. Thank you, Tayo. Have a good one. All right. You guys.
Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome, guys. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.